Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials Live Hangout. It is so good to have you join us. And of course, if you are watching this as a replay, you are also welcome. Thanks for tuning in. And if you are watching it live, hey, it's great to have you join us here every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Of course, we didn't see each other last week because I was off observing Holy Week and Easter Monday, and so I hope you've had a good couple of weeks. I've missed you all, and I've been really looking forward to hanging out with you again. Hey, if you are watching this as right now live, and I see many people are, hello to Karen and Matt. I saw Matt, you have been hanging out with the live chat for quite a couple of hours. I saw some early comments from you, which we'll talk about later. Kathleen Hudson, nice to see you. Chatika, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Nice to see you jumping in, Eric and Duran. Good to have you all here. Make sure you let us know where you're from. I'm in Australia, in the state called Queensland, in Brisbane. Now, for some of you may know that we are currently about 2 hours, actually it's probably about an hour south, in a place called the Gold Coast, which is kind of Australia's Las Vegas, if you like. On the Gold Coast, we're holding what's called the Commonwealth Games, and it happens every 4 years, but in the same rotation as the Winter Olympics. And so they're being held currently. It's the Commonwealth Games, the Commonwealth being those countries that hold to Queen Elizabeth II as the monarch, etc., etc. It's a loose organisation these days, but nonetheless, we are having the Commonwealth Games just an hour south, so that's a big deal. And I tell you all of that because the weather here at the moment is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's around about late 20s, and of a night it's very late teens, so it's very mild, and which has been fabulous for all the athletes while they're here. And what has also been great about the games is that during the games they've had a thing called Festival 2018, and it's all free music, free performances, and so it's good to see the arts coming along alongside the sports, because I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I love sports, and which can be unusual for a person who is a singing teacher, and a lot of my students aren't really into sports. I am. I do love my football and all of those sorts of things. So it's been good to watch some of that on TV. You don't want to know all that. You want to know more about what we're doing today. I am so excited. Over the next 3 months, and hopefully beyond that, but certainly for the next 3 months, I have been able to make contact with and book 6 internationally respected pedagogues who are all going to join us every second week. We'll be doing these live hangouts as usual every week, but starting today, we are going to be welcoming onto the show an internationally respected pedagogue. They're all from all over the world, who are going to come on and share their passion and their drive for singing. And today's guest is no exception to that. In fact, I'm really excited that she's the first one that we're doing with this year. Her name is Michelle Markwart Deveaux. Michelle, I hope I got that right. And she is we're just going to talk about what it is to be, firstly, a passionate singer, but more importantly, what is it to be a self-aware singer? How do we establish trust in ourselves and trust in our voice? And we've already been chatting for about half an hour before the show has started today, and you guys are in for a real treat. This lady's passion and excitement for voice is infectious, and I just know you're going to have a great show today. So thanks for joining in. Let us know where you're from, what the weather is like in your part of the world. And don't forget to start asking your questions in the live chat, because Michelle and I, later in the show, are going to do our very best to answer those questions. I hope you'll stick around because we are in for a real treat. I'll see you right after this.
Sound check. Check one, check two.
So, Michelle, welcome to Voice Essentials. It is so good to have you join us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So just very quickly, because we don't want to bore people with people get very bored on YouTube very quickly, unfortunately. But very quickly, where are you from? What part of the US are you in? And I know is it 9 p.m. there at the moment?
It is. It is 9 p.m. I am in beautiful California, and I live right outside the state capital.
Right outside the state capital. Mm-hmm. For those of us who don't live in the US, the state capital of California is?
Sacramento.
Oh, see, I wouldn't have known that. I would not have known that. And you have a studio. Now, I've put under your name there, faithculturekiss.com. Mm-hmm. Is that the name of your studio?
It is. That's kind of the umbrella name of everything that I do. So I do own a voice and acting studio. And I also, parallel to that, have a teacher mentorship and cooperative group where independent teachers from all over the world can kind of get together and be nice to each other and help each other and their students be amazing. And that's for independent studio teachers. So,
awesome.
But I choose that as my umbrella. And I also, business, put all that marketing and branding and
all of that
performing.
Great stuff.
Yep.
So where did the faith culture kiss come from?
That's a fantastic question. I don't know how much of your audience are faithy people, but I actually have a master's degree in worship theology and the arts.
Okay.
And one of the things that I was most passionate about when I got that degree was making sure that we could be excellent in what we do in the musical arts in the church world, mm-hmm. if you will.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And one of my favorite verses that has always spoken to me is a verse in Psalms that talks about when righteousness and peace kiss one another. And I'm very socially justice motivated. I care very deeply about the way that our faith manifests in culture, and whether that is through a Christendom or you're Wiccan or you're pagan, I don't care how it works. But I really do believe that when our spirituality, our faith, and culture come together, kissing in an intimate way, that we can change the world and we can change humans in that way. So that's where that story comes from for me, and that's why I chose that funny name. And it's also a little nasty if you only acronym it. So it's my little way of being myself.
I had not noticed that until you pointed it out, so thank you for doing so. Actually, for those who don't know, my doctorate is focused on contemporary worship singers, so you and I come from the same place, I think, in many respects. So what I want to do today, Michelle, because look, the reason I was really keen to have you come and join us, because you and I have been interacting for a little over 12 months now, haven't we, online for a few different things, and we're in a couple of those closed groups. That sounds very fancy, doesn't it? Closed Facebook groups, very exclusive, which I don't
fancy.
I don't tend to hang.
Fancy.
Yeah, I don't tend to hang out in them very much, I must admit. But is your positivity is infectious, and it comes through. I came into contact with this term a number of years ago, and the word netiquette. So when I was doing my doctorate, I had two supervisors, and one supervisor's emails always left me feeling so encouraged and inspired. His netiquette had this positivity to it. The other one, his netiquette, and he didn't mean it like this, but his netiquette always left me feeling deflated and discouraged. And like, oh, I'm never going to finish, kind of thing, right? Your netiquette is just so positive and so encouraging, and whenever I see you in the Facebook, feeds and talking and responding to people, you're always so wonderfully magnanimous. And so I wanted to get you onto the channel to talk about what is it that's driving you, and what can we, as a Voice Essentials community, glean off you. It's more that's caught than it's taught. What can we glean off what drives you, and your constant need to encourage others?
Oh gosh. I'm glad I have you fooled, number one. That's like the best ever. I just don't believe that we have to be mean. I really believe that we all have a voice, and that it's all important for it to be heard. I believe every person has a place in this funny, crazy, messed up world. And it makes me sad when people shut down their voice because other people have made them feel small.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that in the world that I don't need to contribute to that. Even if I do have something nasty or sassy to say, you say that in a place of trust and not online to other people, number one. Number two, I generally just believe that people are very smart. I don't believe that I come from a place of assuming the best. I assume that someone knows what they're talking about. I assume that someone is kind, considerate, well-informed until they prove differently. And I think that helps when you meet a person and assume that they know what they're doing. You can treat them with respect. But we have a lot of people in our field and in the entertainment field at large where the immediate assumption is, I know more than you know.
Yeah.
And I choose to not feed that troll, if you will.
How do you feel that then affects the way you teach? So you've got a new student that steps into your studio. How do you feel that you find yourself wanting to respond to that person?
Well, I do a very specific intake lesson with every person who is going to come and sing with me. And I'm very clear. I say, I want nothing for you, but for you to accomplish your goals. Part of that is going to feel great. Another part of that is going to hurt and not feel great. So what's important to me is that when we're together, you feel safe enough to go through the process of being awesome and also sucking. Because if you can't feel safe sucking here, then it's really not going to be safe when you have to go in front of people who are going to be judging you on purpose. Yeah. Because that's what you signed up for, because you chose to do this with your life. Safety is very, very important to me. It's one of my core values, and it manifests in healthy ways and sometimes not so healthy ways for myself, right? But that's what I would do. When a person comes in, I say, let's get safe. Like, you're not going to do anything I've not heard before. There's nothing that you're going to do that's going to shock me or make me think that you are a terrible person. I explain a little bit about the neurology of singing often, and I talk a little bit about how that neurology kind of works against us and makes us maybe own a little bit too much emotionally about what is happening in our instrument. And a lot of times that's very freeing to students, right? Like, oh my gosh, you mean it's connected to my identity in some way, and I'm not a bad person if I hit a wrong note. It's like, no, not at all, right? So I just invite that conversation, and I'm really honest up front, saying it's not always going to be easy and it's not always going to feel good, but at least here you know that we can do that safely.
Let's follow that road a little bit about the neurology of the developing singer. In fact, This gives me a little opportunity to just let everyone know that for the next 2 weeks, starting this week and then next Wednesday, so this Wednesday and next Wednesday, I'm actually stepping us through a number of things that Mary Beth Dame has written in her book about the responsibilities of the teacher and the responsibilities of the student. And she talks about that objectivity required of the student. This week we're looking at the responsibilities of the teacher, and then next week we're looking at the responsibilities of the student. Talk me through a little bit more and explain to us a little bit more about that neurology side of things and what you feel you are able to help the developing student with.
Yeah, well, I don't get too fancy with like this nerve is connected to this nerve, and just for the student, because that gets into a little bit too much. But by the way, Dr. Dame is my mentor, so yeah, I love her on so many levels, and she has influenced me very greatly since I have known her.
I hope to have her onto the channel at some point, but I don't have a personal connection with her, so wink wink, maybe you can give me a handshake through. But anyway, that's for another time.
So okay, let's get back. You know what, can you ask the question again, because it went
away.
We're
just talking about the neurology and what do you help? What do you find yourself saying to students, and how do you guide them along? Because that's really the topic of our discussion today, is this becoming self-aware as a learner and a singer, because that's what we are as singers. We're learners. And that learning process, that developmental pathway, can be disrupted by so many hurdles. I'm so keen to hear, how you help guide your students along that journey.
Thank you for rephrasing that for me. So I talk about how the most important organ for singing in our bodies is our brain, because there are a lot of things that go on in our bodies that we don't necessarily have direct control over. For example, you can't say, I would like to hit this pitch. So left vocal fold, will you please move one? You hear the pitch differently. There's a lot of research on how singers hear and all of that. Tomatis is a good guy to read for that. But I talk about how your brain does things to your body based on what you're thinking about, and how those nerves and those connections are what can bring up in us the ability to make sound. And when we pair that with kind of some anatomical information and some physiological information, and then we also invite in some proprioception, that means like what you're feeling in your body or what you perceive to be feeling in your body. When you invite all those, players to the card table,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
You can have a really nice game of poker. So what I usually do is I say, listen, it's all in your head, and that's fantastic, because that means you can change it. Because if it was only here, and let's say we're healthy, okay, I'm assuming a healthy pathology, like a healthy voice right now, I'm assuming no pathology. If everything is working physically in the way it should work, then we can ask questions of our body by asking questions of our brain. And when we, again, know what's actually happening in the anatomy, or we invite the feelings of the proprioception, which again is just neurology, then we can sing better. And there's a bunch of really interesting data and research out there too about how building new neural pathways, since I just talked about a healthy voice, when there's a voice that maybe has a pathology or has an injury, they're doing a lot of work with just rebuilding neural pathways so that people with injuries can sing again, can speak again. And I have a good singing friend teacher on the East Coast who has done this for herself and works with other teachers that do that as well.
Okay.
So is that...
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of stepping into the idea of brain plasticity there, aren't we?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
many respects. Yeah, which is an exciting field that's just opening up in front of everyone, isn't it? So much research going on. Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, and this is sort of, I'm just sort of hearkening back to something you just said earlier, but I can't remember exactly how you said it. That was the vulnerability you were talking about. And the way I often describe that vulnerability is, I'm always careful to frame this as well as I possibly can. And that is, it's a bit, when we first start learning to sing, it's a little bit like becoming a body model for life drawing. You know, you're suddenly naked, you feel naked, and that's the level of vulnerability, I think, that many beginner singers feel. And you also talked about the proprioception, that kinesthetic awareness, and that kind of leads us into another question, I think, and that is, you know, one of the challenging things that many of my students say to me is, how am I going to know when I'm doing it right? And it speaks to this idea of how do I learn to trust myself that it's all okay and happening in the manner that it should. What would you say to a student that sort of presented that concern to you?
Yeah, I do get that concern. And my first response is, wow, you're making a decision about your voice based on what you think another person wants to hear.
Yeah.
And that's, nobody got famous sounding like somebody else.
What a
Right?
fabulous thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that we all have to be famous or anything, but it's this idea that a lot of times people very much feel like there's a right way and a wrong way.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some truth in that, because like if you're singing classically and you're singing in a genre that is a very specific canon of sound, like this should sound like this, then there is a right sound and a wrong sound, a right resonance, a wrong resonance, if you want to go there. But I think generally speaking, your voice needs to be your voice. And I would first ask the student to get rid of the assumption that there's something they're doing right and something that they're doing wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like just take those words off the table. What I would ask the student is, are you feeling physically comfortable?
Yeah.
If you are not feeling physically comfortable, is it because it's different or because it hurts?
Yeah.
And if it hurts, stop. And if it's different, then let's play with it for a little bit longer and see if it just becomes something that is, you're just not comfortable because it's not a habit yet and it's not something you're used to feeling, right?
Yeah.
I also ask students to not listen to themselves in the actual lesson. I record every lesson.
Yeah.
I invite students to also video their lessons, and that's something actually I learned from Dr. Dame that I've been doing. And I say, don't worry about what you sound like in the lesson. Only worry about what you're feeling. Only worry about the sensations in your body. If we're working on breath, what sensations are you feeling? If we're working on, you know, a high mixed belt, what sensation are you feeling? And then listen later.
Yeah.
And get information about the sound then.
It's a lesson in mindfulness, isn't it? It's a lesson in being present in the moment, and that means not being found in the past moment equally as much as not being found too far ahead of oneself. I mean, we as singers are playing that balance between needing to be prepared for what is coming, but what a lot of singers do, and look, hand up, we find ourselves going, I've missed that note. The moment you're going, I missed that note, you're not where you need to be.
Exactly.
Because you're now in the past, and the song's moved on. And if you
can I share my favorite analogy with you for this?
Please do.
Okay, this is my favorite analogy that I use. I just used it today, yesterday with a student.
Awesome.
So, do you like eggs?
I like the yolks of eggs.
You're like one of the only people I've met who likes the yolk and not the white.
Oh, I love the yolk. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm kind of known for leaving the whites. Anywho.
okay. Well, do you like cookies or cake? Anything that has eggs in them, right? Just go with me on the eggs here, all right?
Sorry, have I wrecked the illustration? My apologies.
You totally wrecked it. No, so you go to the fridge, and in the United States, you have to refrigerate your eggs.
Yeah,
Do you refrigerate
we refrigerate. Well, yeah, for the most part, we do. Yes.
Okay. So you get the bowl of eggs out of the refrigerator because you're going to make a cake or a cookie or scrambled eggs or whatever, and one egg falls off
Right.
onto the ground.
Right.
What happens to that egg?
Well,
It breaks.
It breaks.
It breaks. It makes a mess. Do you then take the rest of the eggs and throw them on the ground?
I love
with
it.
the other egg?
I love it.
No. You take the bowl. You go, oh, I dropped those eggs. You deal with the eggs in your hand.
Yeah.
And then you can go back
Then you can
and
go
clean
back.
up the mess.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's how I see this,
Fabulous.
any song, any performance to be. You're holding eggs. If one falls, you better not throw the rest of those eggs on the ground just because you're worried about the one on the floor. Deal with the rest of the performance. Carry the eggs to the counter. Do what you need to do. And then after the performance, worry about how you're going to clean up eggs and not drop them next time.
With your permission, I am going to use that because that is a brilliant illustration.
Thank you.
It is so to the point, right? Not only I think do we want to stop and clean up the mess, unfortunately, driven by at times our insecurities, we actually want to get down and play in the mess, don't we? We want to actually revel in the mess.
Or we want to beat up ourselves about the mess.
Yeah,
I can't believe I dropped an egg. It was so terrible that I dropped the egg. I must be so stupid. Why did I know how to carry eggs? I've carried all the eggs before. Why did I drop the egg now? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a powerful illustration. I think that's going to be so helpful to so many people here on the channel. And people that are watching. Absolutely.
I honestly don't remember if I made it up or I learned it somewhere. So if I'm not intentionally not attributing, I thought I made it up. But if it's written somewhere by some more important person than me, then there you go.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time. Those eggs. Attribution
is an important thing in our game, is it not? Now. Let's now sort of turn our let's shift the pace of our discussion a little, because this game, because when I emailed you, I asked what you would like to talk about, because people always hear me on the channel. I want other people to hear. I want people on the channel to hear my guests, not me. So you said you're really passionate about seeing people make opportunities and creating opportunities. I know you're very passionate in the area of business at the moment and those sorts of things. But coming back to the idea of the developing singer, how would you apply that drive to see people creating opportunities into their singing?
I think every person should find places to sing. And even if you're a very beginner, man, you can go to a retirement community, or you can go to the hospital. You can go, I don't know how it is in Australia, but in the United States, you can team up with maybe a service group that goes into prisons.
Yeah.
You can do so many things with your budding voice that will bring so much joy and so much peace, and also conveniently give you a performance opportunity to be in front of people. I think on the holidays, when you have your families together, lead a song circle. Say, I printed out all this music. I'm going to sing for you. I'm going to play. Or I found these background tracks. YouTube's awesome for background tracks, right?
Yeah.
I set up a whole big set list just of background tracks, and I'm going to sing for you. Even creating fundraisers. I love fundraisers. So you get your friends together and you say, let's pick a charity. Let's pick something that we're passionate about. and just sing in our backyard in a house concert. Creating your own opportunities to sing does a lot of things. First of all, it'll actually prepare you for the real world of having to gig, right? And then get your gig. And that's mostly for, obviously, for more commercial pop rock, jazz kind of stuff.
Yep.
But it'll teach you what you need to get ready. It'll teach you maybe the equipment you do need that maybe you didn't. It actually would be really helpful for me to have my own PA and my own keyboard that I can carry with me, or whatever you discover you need. I also think you can never practice performance. You can prepare a performance, but you can't practice it. The only way you practice performing is by actually performing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said about that, those funny feelings that come when people are watching all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Really safe places, again, like retirement communities and homes for people who are habilitating.
Yes.
Or rehabilitating.
Yes.
Are fantastic. And they are so happy to have people come and give of their talent.
Yeah.
Even if it's, old folks' homes are a fantastic place to get some guts and some grit, because there will always be like that one person who will be like, shut up, that's loud and you're terrible. Even if you're not, you can like be completely perfect, and there's just going to be that one person.
There is.
And that's fantastic for your constitution.
Yeah, it will be. I think one of the biggest hurdles that faces young singers today is actually the cult of celebrity. And the fact that what it speaks to us as a society is it says, if you're not going to be famous doing something, if you're not going to be the best in the world at doing something, then don't bother.
Ooh, preach.
And it's such a societal lie, isn't it? I play. Many of the people here on the channel know that I play touch football. Every week. Touch football is probably not a well-known game in the US, but here in Australia it's kind of quite a well-known pastime and hobby sport, if you like.
Yeah.
I'm not great. I'm funnily enough, I'm the captain of our side, but certainly not because I'm the best player. But if I walked out onto the field, if I had the expectation of being the best touch football player of all time, and that's the only reason I'm going to play, I'd never step onto the field. And I throw bad passes. I do a lot of wrong things while I'm out there. But you know what? I am having the time of my life. One of my favourite things to do every week is to go and play touch football with my friends who are in the team with me. And
fantastic.
It's the same with our singing. We get caught up in, if I'm not going to have the same level of fame as Ed Sheeran, or if I'm not going to have 100,000 followers on YouTube, then why would I ever bother? Well, the reason you would bother is because you love it and you enjoy it, and it gives you that sense of self-satisfaction that many of us as singers know and love and go looking for. And it's, again, driven by what you said earlier, is that it's not driven by what others are going to think. It's driven by, first and foremost, what you personally will obtain out of it, and then what you're then able to offer in your communication to others in that process.
Absolutely. And, if you want to be famous, there's a lot of ways you can get famous. I'm serious. Like, if you are singing just because you want to be famous, like, figure out what you want. That's fine if you want to be famous, but you don't need to do it singing. There's a lot of ways to get famous. So,
yeah.
Why do we sing? And there's so many reasons that we should be singing, and young singers, we're gonna make a lot of mistakes when we're new. right? We're going to forget words. We're going to sing pitches that are not the correct notes. Our bodies, our musculature isn't going to be conditioned in a way that allows us to sing through phrases or to produce a quality or resonant of sound. How else are you going to learn how to do it? How else until you kind of stumble through?
And I love what you said earlier about performance is it's one thing to do it in the studio and to learn the sensations that come with doing it in the teaching studio or in your own bedroom or wherever you are practicing your singing. It's another thing completely. The sensations do change the moment you find yourself in front of an audience.
Absolutely. You send some adrenaline through your body.
It changes everything.
It's supposed to.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if your amygdala starts getting bigger, which it should, because if you're excited, right, fight or flight, your amygdala starts to just blow up like a balloon. And all of those hormones are going through your body. And if you can't work to keep your breathing as consistent as possible during that, your body is fighting against you the whole time. Your body wants your heart to race. Your body wants your breath to quicken because it's trying to get you the heck out of Dodge of something scary. So we have to learn. And if you're not really actually in that situation, you're not going to learn how to manage that surge and manage that sensory input. So, go sing in a scary place.
So as we're chatting, you go and sing in the scary place. We should put that on our wall somewhere. Go and sing in the scary place.
Why not?
But let's because as we're talking and there's so much truth in what you're saying. I do want to just direct our thoughts, though, to those singers, and you will have had them step into your studio as I have them step into mine. Those singers who actually don't want to perform, their reason for singing is to not actually present in front of anyone. It's for pure self-enjoyment. What is your word of encouragement to them?
Don't stop, and please come to more lessons because I would love to work with more of you. That sounds so silly and so terrible, but I love my studio. I adore the humans in my studio. I also have most people whose ultimate plan is to be in front of people to do it. And when I get the opportunity to work with someone who just wants to sing better, just wants to be able to sing to their child lullabies. Oh my gosh, the lullaby, I had a dad come in a couple months ago because he just wanted to sing some lullabies to his new baby. I was like, can you just be my student all the time? You're just checking it out, seeing. And I say more, and more play. Those are the students I would love to hear play more with their voice. Because there's usually some self-judgment wrapped up in not wanting to sing in front of people. Singing is a communication form. So when someone says, well, I don't want to sing in front of people, I don't push them. I don't say, well, yes, you have to, but that does communicate to me that there's something going on about not wanting to be heard.
Yeah.
And so I really try to draw out, I just want to keep hearing you. I just want to keep hearing you. And if they play, a lot of times I haven't had an experience where those singers are comfortable playing. So I try to get them to play more.
Let's. I just want to, before we go looking, looking at some Q&A for everyone who's on the live chat. I just want to just explore that word play a little bit more because I love it, and it's. I have often said in my studio, in fact, I've said it here on the channel many times, in a world of, we mentioned the term the cult celebrity earlier, the cult of celebrity. The cult of celebrity has really driven this Photoshop. You know, you and I, before the show started, we were talking about Photoshopped vocals. So vocals that have been produced within, to within an inch of its life. And we have learnt to, we don't even question now that every CD that we're listening to has been auto-tuned, and that everything is perfect. It's so shiny and it's so perfect that it in many respects it sanitizes the communication. It sanitizes and dilutes the authenticity. I have an album by an artist here in Australia. His name is Jeff Bullock. He wrote a number of songs back in the 90s with a group called Hillsong. And
yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah. Now he put out an album about a decade and a half ago of just him sitting at the piano and playing and singing. Now he's a pianist and a songwriter. In many respects he is not a singer, but it is one of my favorite albums because it was real. It wasn't doctored. That level of authenticity means that the level of communication is unhindered. It's one raw human heart to another, and it takes a level of self-security, I think, in this age of perfection to do that. But it also requires a person to be prepared to, and this is where I want to hand over to you, to be prepared to play.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think our voice is a lot bigger than we give it credit for.
Yeah.
We can do so much more. And the reality is that our communication, this is one of those things that our brains just does for us, right? Like there's a reason why the no that we say to our child who's going to write on the wall sounds different than the no that we say when they're running into the street in front of a car.
Yeah.
And that's not something we're deciding. It's something that our brain is taking care of for us. And it's these little moments in sound that if we have access to them because we've played with them and put them in the context of singing, they will come out when we are emotionally connected to the lyric or emotionally connected to the piece of music. So I actually talk more about this when I get into the acting parts of my training. So when we're monologuing a song, when we're going through the song in order to perform it, let's say the musical theater students that I have, or even the classical students, where we're honing in and saying what is being communicated, what was the composer's intent, what is the lyricist's intent, what do we need to communicate? And you know what? The thing that comes out of your face might not need to be pretty.
Yeah.
It might need to be, it has to be healthy and it has to be efficient. So if you have not played with your voice and cannot create that sound that's connected to that deep emotion or that silly emotion or that brassy emotion, and you haven't prepared the musculature for that, that's a great way to wind up at the ENT. You know, like you're just not vocally healthy or efficient because your musculature isn't there and ready for you. And you wind up overdoing it, or you push too hard through a phrase, or maybe you slam the folds together in a weird, funny way because you were so emotive and not prepared to be emotive in that way. So vocal play to me, I love having like conversations, like only singing conversations, you know, where we're only allowed to have a conversation about the day when we're singing to each other. I love to throw out words or textures or emotions, and even just in, you know, the scales or the exercises that we're doing, you know, maybe it's a 5-1 da 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 da, you know, and they have to, okay, happy, okay, now do it sad, really mad, you know, in a library, you know, and just doing all sorts of different things with the voice so that when the song actually demands that, it's ready to go.
It's there.
And it's in the body memory.
Yeah, great. Yeah, fabulous. And it is that experimentation, isn't it? I mean, that's really another word for the word play. It's the exploratory nature of it, but doing it at a time that performance is not the time to explore, is it? Because you can play, you can put the voice in danger, as you say. If you haven't already taken, there are those moments where we take a risk in performance, and they're wonderful, and so I'm not saying we don't take risks in performance, but we want to have done the majority of our play privately, to explore.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like gathering your colors, right? Like all your crayons. So, you know, a lot of people sing with the 16 crayon box.
Yeah.
And I want my singers to have that big old huge Crayola circle thing, you know, where it's like 100 million colors. And I want them to feel, what does it feel like? What does it sound like? Because you're really going to discover a lot of very interesting things about your own communication style and your own personal sound when you start making sounds you don't think you are allowed to make.
Awesome.
And people judge, they say, well, I want to sound like this person. I want to sound like that person. And so they mimic, and I think mimic is a great way in order to introduce, like listening is important, mimicking is a great way, but ultimately you need to sound like you. And sometimes the play is just the way we get out of this, we get the singer out of their own way.
Yeah.
Right? Play also, in my opinion, can introduce healthy concepts in order to help rewire things that are being done out of habit. You know, negative, in like the teaching world, they call it, you know, like negative reinforcement. So you're like forcing failure, singing it wrong on purpose in order to feel what it's like wrong. So when you introduce it in a way, again, wrong being unhealthy, inefficient, not bad sound, but in a way that's unhealthy or inefficient, you can introduce that in order to give it a very distinctive difference in the body with something that's actually efficient and is working well. Make sense?
Yeah, it's so making sense. I'm getting so much out of our discussion, and my brain is firing off on all different directions, going, we could talk about this, we could talk about that, and then I looked at the time and went, we don't have time. We don't have time. It has been so good to chat with you, and I know for certain that everyone that's either tuning in live or is watching this as a replay will have been getting so much out of your generosity and your open heart. So I'm so thankful. Do you know, I've been sitting here desperately hoping that I've got the tech side of things right, because these live hangouts, there's a myriad of things that can go wrong, but I think so far we're doing okay. What I want to do, if it's okay with you, because we are nearly out of time, I just want to quickly jump across to doing some questions with everyone. And so if you're watching this currently live, then please make sure you're writing your questions in the chat section, because I'm going to quickly go through, and Michelle and I are going to do our best to respond to your questions. And Michelle, we will come back right after. I've got a fun little video that we show
Cool.
directly before we do the Q&A, and it looks something like this. Okay, so let's do some Q&A, and we're only going to spend 5 or 10 minutes doing this, everyone, because Michelle has been so generous with her time. It's quite late. I dare say it's very late where most of our live hangout people are, but I'm going to go right back up to the... There's a question. I'm going to give the first question to Matt, because he's been on the live hangout since I don't know when this morning. And his question is, what is it when people say you're pitchy? How would you answer that, Michelle?
First of all, I think that word is so terrible. But what I think they're trying to communicate when someone says someone is pitchy is that they are out of tune. So they're either singing below a pitch, just under, maybe a little flat, or maybe they're singing, maybe it's a little over pressurized and they're singing sharp.
Yeah.
But they're not hitting those notes right in the center of those pitch centers. And people like to say you're pitchy. By the way, there's a super hilarious bad lip read.
Bad lip read? You're a little pitchy. You're a little pitchy. It's Luke Skywalker says it to Yoda, I believe, is the reference there.
Yes.
I don't know. You're a little pitchy. Yeah.
Pitching means out of tune.
Love it. Love it. If you haven't seen that video, everyone, go and look up Seagulls by Bad Lip Reading. It is hilarious.
And it will be in your head.
And it will be.
It will get so stuck in your head.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Before I get too carried away, what do I do for attaining good breath support? So this is Jitika, who's telling me that there's no way I'm going to learn to pronounce her name correctly. Thank you. What do I do for attaining good breath support and control? I think that is the key to good singing. What would you say, Michelle, if you're looking to attain good breath support and control?
Okay. Well, I would say allow yourself to get rid of the word support and invite yourself to think about management.
I love it.
Rather than support, and especially because it also depends on what genre of music you're singing and the way that you're going to want to change the thoracic pressure behind the sound. So here's the exercise that I would do. And you know what? I actually think Karen on her channel talked about this in her live today.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I love the Farinelli exercise. You can find information about this in Richard Miller's books, but Farinelli was an Italian opera singer dude a bazillion years ago. And what he invited us to do is breathe and think of it in 3 sections. So let's say to the count of 5, you would inhale for 5, you would suspend that breath for 5, and then you would exhale over 5.
So you are right now going through exercise track 13, exercise 12 on my Voice Essentials CD, which is taken from the Richard Miller stuff. So keep going, please.
Well, okay, so you can do that. You can listen to Dr. Dan then instead. The other thing that I would invite you to do is discover in your body where your 10th and 11th rib are. That's going to be at the bottom of your rib cage. And instead of thinking about taking a breath first, like getting breath in your body first, think about expanding down there in that 10th and 11th rib. So you're actually kind of stretching out the intercostal muscles and allowing the diaphragm to flatten out. But think about that first with an open mouth and a relaxed jaw and a relaxed open throat, if you will. So what you're actually thinking of is expand. And what you'll find out is that the breath comes. Because
absolutely.
Science.
Atmospheric
science,
pressure.
Right?
Yep.
So if we expand, we can all do it together. We can just expand. And we experience the breath just comes right in.
Yep.
Now you just hold that and then you release.
Yeah.
Because what you're really doing, friend who we cannot say your name, please forgive me, is we're inviting those muscles to get stronger and stay in a position of openness.
Yeah.
While we are expelling air and using air to create sound.
Yes.
So that would be strengthening those intercostals. Those are the muscles in between the ribs, and inviting that stretch and that diaphragm muscle to kind of passively learn how to be stronger.
Fabulous.
By keeping it there.
Awesome. Awesome. I've got a video that I recently did where I talked about the term inhalare la voce, which I don't use that term. I'm a contemporary only singing teacher. If you're new to the channel, Michelle teaches classical, all different genres and disciplines.
I'll teach whatever you pay me for.
But I won't. And so I don't use that term very much. But it's certainly I go through how we can apply that sense of open throat, that sense of exactly what you've just explained, which is explained beautifully. So we won't go over it. Zoli asks, I am monotone. How can I learn to sing without sounding monotone?
When you say monotone, do you mean that you're singing on the same pitch all the time, just like this? Or do you mean that you're using the same amount of intensity?
I think
What
let's
I would
go with the pitch.
Okay, so the first thing I would do is I would start humming sirens. Just, And what I would do is pretend like you're eating a really delicious, delicious dinner. And really also feel that stretch. You can use your hands. Pardon me, I'm going to cough here. You can use your hands to kind of help your body do things. There's really cool little neural connections.
Yeah,
back
love
to
it.
neurology. And you can pretend maybe that you're going to be your vocal folds, right? And maybe you go,
Love it.
Some people like to actually hold a rubber band because that kind of
Tactile.
stretches the
Yeah.
thyroids.
Yeah.
Does that. Therabands also work well. But I also go, oh my goodness, yes, girl. So I like to go low, really low on purpose. And then I like to go really high on purpose and pretend you're Mickey Mouse. Right? So if you can, and then that gets back to the play.
I was just about to, you beat me to it. It goes back to the play and the exploring, doesn't it?
I hope that helps because sometimes we get stuck. We don't realize what we can do. So pretend you're Mickey Mouse. And then pretend you're Donald Duck. And then pretend you're a really low guy just like this. Like a big dude. Start playing with it and see what happens with that. And then maybe you'll be able to start changing pitches. But those sirens will also help. Sirens and glides, yeah.
Absolutely. Now I'm looking over here. I'm going to give the last question for the day to Moa Power 4 ALS _. So more power for. Would it be more power for y'alls? Would that be how you say? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to say your thoughts on y'alls. Your thoughts on live band versus karaoke. I am frustrated with just doing karaoke, but don't have access to keyboard or guitar.
Do you play keyboard or guitar?
This is yes. Well, we don't know, do we? Let's suggest that they don't.
Okay. Well, I think a great way to figure out if you can get bandmates is to go watch live bands that are small local bands. So get out there, make sure you're going to open mic nights, make sure you're kind of keeping your head on like the local shops or I don't know, bars, whatever you find where they're doing local gigging. Festivals are great, like food and wine festivals and like farmers markets will often have people playing. Go and listen, introduce yourself. That's one way.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is you can go to local schools. I don't know how old you are and how appropriate it would be for you to go to a local college or local high schools and just say, hey, I would love to be able to work with some people and just do a jam session.
Yeah.
Invite people over, make some, get those eggs out, make some hard-boiled eggs and some cookies with those eggs, and invite them with you and say, this is what I'd love to do. I'd love to try to sing with you, and just be as open and friendly as you can. But go listen to all the people who are already do live gigging.
And this is what I'm about to say is so old school, but it's something I still, as well as what Michelle has just said, that's something I still encourage singers to do who are looking to be in a band or whatever. If you have a local college or university or they often have a notice board, an old school cork board, and you'd be surprised at how many people will put up notices of their bands looking for a singer, or you yourself can say, hey, singer looking for band. It's so retro, but a lot of the universities still do it, and you are getting a captive audience. It's a space where you are going to have musicians, you are going to have singers, and they're looking to connect. And of course, you can do it, on the social networks as well. But doing the old school way really works as well. Michelle, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today, and And I just know, from the amount of live chat that's been going on, how much everyone has been so appreciative of what you've shared with us and the generosity of heart and intent. It's been so very cool to discuss voice and becoming that self-aware singer. I think we're all on that journey, aren't we? And I heard it once explained like this: many of us as adults who sing, are actually trying just to get back to what it was like to be a child who sung, and to have that sense of freedom and play and abandonment. You know, we could all walk around the house or the yard, just my kids in the shower, just singing with complete abandonment, and it's lovely to hear. And you know, I think we're all on the journey trying to get back there, and I think you've given us so many wonderful keys to do that with today. I just want to allow you to say goodbye before I just close up. Was there anything finally that you wanted to say?
I just want to say thank you, and thank you for everyone who tuned in and had wonderful things to say. And hi, Karen, I can kind of see your name up there in the little chat. Thank you so much. It's good to see you here. I really do appreciate it. I'm so lucky that you would even consider to invite me to be part of your channel discussion and into your community, and that means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I'm sure everyone, you'll probably want to see Michelle again, and hopefully she will be able to join us again in the future, and we can maybe go off into some of those tributaries. You know, tributary, is that a right word? No, I don't know. Down some of those side alleys that we were kind of didn't have time to discuss today. Hey, look, if this is the first time you've ever joined one of our live chats, thank you for tuning in, whether it's been live or as a live replay. If you've enjoyed the chat, please give the video a thumbs up, and don't hesitate to share it with your friends on your social networks. We do these live hangouts every Monday, 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Next week we'll deep dive into a subject and have a bit of a chat. But as I said, for the next few months, we're going to be every second week, we're going to be having a new guest on the show who's going to join us and talk us through what they're passionate about, and the area of perhaps in some cases the research that they're doing, stuff that I think is going to be really helpful to you, as I know it has been today. But look, until I see you in the next Voice Essentials Hangout, I really do hope that you'll have a great week. I look forward to seeing you again soon. My name is Dr. Dan. Sing well.